Welcome to another deep dive. We're going to explore the world of plutocrats,
Plutocrats?
the super rich who are shaping the global economy today.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of research and stories for you guys, from economics and history to even Silicon Valley culture.
Oh, wow.
All from this fascinating book called Plutocrats, the rise of the new global super rich and the fall of everyone else.
You know, it's about more than just their wealth, though, right? It's about the power and influence they have.
Right.
And how they're changing the world around us all.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're going to unpack today in this deep dive.
Okay.
How this new breed of plutocrats is different, how they got to where they are, and what it all means for the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first things that struck me when I was reading the book was how this isn't, your typical image of the idle rich,
Right.
just lounging around. This is a new generation. This is the working rich.
Yeah, and it's a huge shift. You know,
Dude.
economist Emmanuel Size, he found that back in 1916, only 1/5 of the income of the richest 1% came from actual work.
Wow.
Then fast forward to 2004, that number has skyrocketed to 60%.
Really?
Yeah, so we're not talking about old money or inheritance here.
Wow.
These plutocrats are earning their fortunes largely through their salaries.
That's 3 times higher.
Yeah, it is.
It really challenges the traditional idea of what a plutocrat is, doesn't it?
It does.
But does this automatically mean that we're in a more meritocratic system now?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's easy to think so, especially with, the rise of these alpha geeks
Yeah, alpha geeks.
in tech and finance.
Yeah.
People like Mark Zuckerberg building these billion-dollar empires in their 20s.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. But is it just merit, or are there other things going on?
Right. It's not that simple.
No.
And the book dives into this idea of responding to revolution as this driving force behind wealth creation. It argues that today's plutocrats are often those who were able to capitalize on periods of radical change,
Okay.
like the tech boom or the fall of communism.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, they saw an opportunity and they seized it.
Makes sense.
Take Reid Hoffman, for example.
Oh, yeah?
The founder of LinkedIn.
Mm.
He was in a perfect position to ride that wave of the internet revolution.
The internet revolution.
But the book also brings up this less glamorous side to it all.
Oh.
The concept of rent-seeking.
Rent-seeking.
Yeah, for those who might not be familiar with the term rent-seeking, is essentially using political influence for economic gain.
Interesting.
Which raises some questions about the fairness of the system, even in supposedly free markets.
Yeah, absolutely. And the book has some pretty stark examples of this.
Oh, yeah.
Like Carlos Slim, the Mexican telecom tycoon.
Yeah?
He amassed his fortune by leveraging regulations to his advantage.
Wow.
Then you've got, the whole wave of financial deregulation in the U.S. That fueled the rise of Wall Street, but ultimately contributed to the 2008 financial crisis.
Yeah.
So while some plutocrats might be this working rich, they're also working the system to their own benefit.
It makes you wonder about the true nature of meritocracy, right?
Yeah, it does.
Is it really a level playing field?
Right.
Or are some players given a significant head start?
That's where this thing called the Matthew effect comes in.
The Matthew effect.
Yeah, it's this idea coined by sociologist Robert Merton.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically that those who have early success are more likely to just keep accumulating it.
Okay.
Think of it like a snowball rolling downhill, getting bigger and bigger.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And in today's world, the globalized tech-driven world,
Right.
that snowball, it's rolling faster.
Yeah.
And getting bigger than ever before. The book gives this example of Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga.
Who can reach this global audience and earn way more than an opera singer like Mrs. Billington, a superstar back from the 1800s, simply because of technology.
Yeah.
She started with talent.
Uh-huh.
But the system today amplifies that initial advantage.
And on the flip side, you've got junior lawyers struggling
Oh, right.
as AI starts to take over these routine tasks.
Yeah.
And then you've got these star lawyers like David Boies, who thrive by representing these wealthy clients who can afford their expertise.
Right.
Technology isn't inherently good or bad, but it can definitely worsen inequalities that are already there.
Okay, so we're seeing this new breed of plutocrats.
Right.
Often these alpha geeks who are capitalizing on these technological and political shifts to gain just immense wealth.
Yeah.
Well, what does this mean for everyone else?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
It's like, how's this concentration of wealth and power shaping the world around us?
Yeah.
Including your life.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to explore next.
All right, let's do it.
It's almost like we're living in two different realities now.
Right.
You know, the world of the super rich
Mm-hmm.
and then the world that everyone else experiences.
Yeah, that's what Reid Hoffman,
Oh, yeah.
LinkedIn guy we talked about, he called it two economies.
Dual economy.
Yeah.
I like that.
So there's that fast-paced, globalized economy of the elites,
Mm-hmm.
and then the traditional economy that many are struggling in,
Right.
with like wages stagnating and job security dwindling.
Yeah. It makes you wonder if like the same rules even apply anymore.
Right.
Like we're told, work hard, you know, get a good education.
Right.
But are those traditional pathways to success even possible now?
It's tough.
Yeah.
The book actually makes this really interesting point about education
Okay.
in this new landscape.
Okay.
They compare the old Book of Gold.
The Book of Gold.
Yeah, it was like an actual list of the aristocracy to
Oh,
today's version,
Okay.
which is a degree from an elite university.
So instead of inheriting land or titles, exactly. It's now about inheriting access to these exclusive institutions.
Yeah, and those degrees are becoming so expensive
Right.
and difficult to get.
Even for people who work really hard.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
It's a system where the children of the super elite
Yeah.
have this built-in advantage,
Right.
which just perpetuates inequality.
Wow.
It's almost like a new kind of aristocracy
Oh, wow.
based on credentials and connections
Yeah.
instead of like bloodlines.
It's wild. This is making me think about the cultural impact of all this.
Yeah, for sure.
The book talks about this new class of plutocrats
Yeah,
who are influencing not just the economy,
right.
but they're shaping intellectual and cultural discourse as well.
They're shaping the narrative.
Yeah, they're funding universities' think tanks,
Yeah.
even media outlets.
It's a very subtle form of power,
It is.
but it's super influential.
It is.
They determine what gets researched and taught at universities.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of crazy.
This reminds me of that story about Henry Ford in the book.
Oh,
He wrote this letter back in 1977,
okay.
expressing concern about anti-business sentiment among intellectuals.
It's interesting.
It seems like he felt the institutions that benefited him
Yeah.
were turning against the system that made him successful.
Yeah, like biting the hand that feeds.
Exactly. And then you have the rise of like conservative think tanks,
Right.
like the Heritage Foundation,
Mhm.
that have had a huge impact on policies,
Absolutely.
often advocating for things that help the wealthy.
Right. It's this complex web of money ideas and power.
It is.
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah.
on one hand,
Right.
you've got these alpha gooks building tech empires,
Right.
revolutionizing industries.
Mhm.
But on the other hand,
Yeah.
you have this like concern about the growing divide between the super rich and everybody else.
These two economies?
Yeah, these two economies trying to exist together.
Yeah, and it's not just economics.
Right.
It's power influence the ideas that shape society.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah, the book really makes us think about how we see wealth fairness and the role of plutocrats.
It definitely raises a lot of questions like how do we balance individual ambition with a need for a more fair society?
Right.
And what responsibility do these super wealthy and powerful people have to the rest of us?
Well, the book ends
Yeah.
with this thought-provoking story
Okay.
about John Dashwood.
John Dashwood.
Yeah, he's a character from Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility.
Oh, Sense and Sensibility. I love that book.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay.
So John Dashwood inherits his father's fortune,
Okay.
and he drastically cuts the financial support
Oh, wow.
for his stepmom and his half-sisters.
Oh, that's not nice.
Yeah, even though he promised his dad that he would take care of him.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's a tough situation.
Yeah.
Makes you think about our own views
Right.
of right and wrong when it comes to wealth.
Exact. Are we more forgiving of someone who inherited their wealth
Mm-hmm.
versus someone who built it through, disruptive innovation?
Right, even if their actions are kind of morally iffy.
Yeah. It's something to think about for sure.
The book doesn't give us easy answers.
Right.
It challenges us to really look at our own biases
Yeah.
and how they might affect our understanding of these new plutocrats.
It's easy to just focus on the stories of individual plutocrats.
Yeah.
But I think the real value of this deep dive is understanding the bigger picture.
The systemic forces at play.
Yeah, exactly. The Matthew effect, rent-seeking the influence of these super rich on our institutions.
Right.
That's the stuff that really shapes the world.
And your opportunities.
My opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where do we go from here?
Right.
What can our listener do with all this knowledge about plutocrats?
Well, knowledge empowers you, right?
It does.
You can ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Challenge assumptions.
Right.
Have more conversations.
Yeah.
It's about being aware of what's going on
Mm-hmm.
and using that awareness to navigate the world.
In a smarter way.
Exactly, in your career, your community, your personal life.
Yeah, this deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about.
You do.
It's a reminder that the world's always changing,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to understand these changes.
Yeah.
Wow, we have covered so much in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
Into the world of plutocrats.
From the working rich and technology
Yeah.
to two economies
Mm.
and how wealth subtly influences our culture.
It's been complex.
It has.
And honestly, a little bit unsettling.
A little bit, yeah.
But that's why we learn about these things, right?
I think so.
By understanding it, we
Right,
can
right.
start to navigate these forces.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
what takeaways do you think are most important for our listeners to really remember?
Okay, well, I think the first one is that the very nature of wealth is changing.
Okay.
It's not just inheritance or land ownership anymore.
Right.
It's really shifting toward intellectual capital
Okay.
and being able to capitalize on these rapid technological advancements.
So new pathways.
New pathways, yeah.
But it raises questions about meritocracy,
Absolutely, yeah.
access opportunity.
Huge questions.
Yeah, and it's not just individual success stories.
Right.
It's this concentration of wealth at the top and how that affects everything.
Creates a ripple effect.
From income inequality and social mobility
Yeah.
to even the ideas that shape our culture.
You got it.
That concept of two economies really stuck with me.
Yeah, the big one.
It highlights that divide
Mhm.
between, the elite and everyone else.
That fast-paced, globalized world.
Yeah, it's a reminder that not everyone's playing by the same rule.
No, not at all.
What about that story of John Dashwood?
Oh, yeah.
What's the takeaway there?
It's really about looking at our own biases.
Okay.
We all have these ideas about wealth and fairness.
Yeah.
But do we judge wealthy people differently
Mm-hmm.
based on how they got their money?
Right.
Are we more forgiving if we think they're self-made?
Yeah.
Or innovative, even if what they did is kind of ethically questionable?
Right. It's tough.
It is. It's a tough one.
It's easy to get lost in those stories of individual plutocrats.
Yeah, sure.
But I think the real value here
Yeah.
is understanding the bigger picture.
The system.
Yeah, the Matthew effect,
Mhm.
rent-seeking,
Yeah.
this influence on our institutions.
That's what shapes our world.
That's what shapes my world.
Yeah.
Okay, so where do we go from here?
That's the question.
What can our listeners do with all this knowledge?
Well, knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
You can ask better questions,
Yeah.
challenge what you think you know.
Have those important conversations.
Exactly.
Be aware.
Be aware.
And use that awareness to navigate.
Everything. Your career relationships, your community.
Oh, man. This deep dive has really given me a lot to think about.
Same here.
It's like a wake-up call.
Yeah, it is.
That the world is changing.
Constantly.
And we really need to understand these changes.
Yeah, to thrive.
To thrive, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of plutocrats.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And to our listeners, remember, there's always more to learn, so keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.